Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday to you. I've had some requests to broaden the scope of economic discussion given the times we're in with pandemic, and I've decided to also bring some of the content over here to more mainstream it to other people. I've had more than a few subscribers that said maybe more people could benefit or get more exposure over here on the Rosie Murphy channel. And if you do have friends, I would urge you to tell them to subscribe. These are just my opinions, but I think so far I've been pretty much ahead of the curve in looking at things that are coming down the pike and ringing the warning bell in advance. So I'm going to continue doing that. These are my opinions. You'll have a certain number of people that'll be out there that'll poo-poo and say, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. We have a right on YouTube channels to express our opinions, and I will continue to do so unfettered by the thoughts or opinions of others. Opinions are always welcome. But if you're just here to berate or tell people tell me what I shouldn't do, then you can just move on from the channel. These are very challenging times. They need some insight. They need some analysis beyond what you get in the news. We are at a tipping point here. The question is, in light of all of the stimulus that's been unleashed, and it's something on the order of, when it's all said and done, probably $4 trillion of printed money unleashed against a $20 trillion economy. So 20% is being injected into what was a $20 trillion economy. That'll probably shrink to the order of something to 14 trillion in the years ahead as whole sections of our economy are cleaved off. The question is, will it come back? And this is where we're balanced on the edge. The markets knew that given the scope of our initial plunge in March of 2020, beginning in February and ending in March of 2020, the market already knew that there would be a huge response to that. It happens every crisis we get into. 2008, 1907, 1987. It's just every time something happens, of course there's going to be a response. Stimulus, something to offset the effects, put money in people's hands. The real question is, will the underlying economy be fundamentally altered in the future? That's the real issue. Or will we go back to life as we knew it before all of this came down? I will remind you that the warning bell of recession was ringing in August of 2019, last year, August 14th of 2019. When the yield inversion took place and the yield on the 10-year federal note went below the yield on the 2-year, it rarely happens, but it's an excellent indicator of recession. And boy, did we get one long before anybody had ever heard of COVID-19. The forces were already in place, that things were slowing down on the trade front in China and other. We know that was coming. Okay, what this COVID-19 is, it's the pin that popped the balloon here. But the question is, what is the shape of recovery going to be? Is it going to be altered? I guess the big answer comes in how well we handle the pandemic and how soon this scourge of a hurricane and this surge passes overhead. But we can't be naive enough to think that when the curve goes flat and starts to hopefully decline, that people will engage in pre-virus activities to the same extent that they did. It's unrealistic to expect them to rush back to restaurants, expect them to rush back to coffee shops, dress shops, whatever, retail, to do a lot of purchasing. It's just not realistic to expect that. And the collapse of the department store stocks, Macy's, etc., bears that out. How fundamentally changed will our society and our financial markets be, and our production and our output going forward? It's the $64,000 question. So those who were looking for some type of V-shaped recovery have started to disappear now as people see it's going to be a long slog out. So we can't expect a lot of those shops to, they may bravely attempt to reopen, get some short-term financing, but one wonders whether the demand will be there when they do reopen. People will still be fearful, will still be practicing VSD, voluntary social distancing. So it's, my conclusion is it's going to be a long, hard slog back, and it's only going to be businesses that are getting by, that are providing a real need. All of the fluff things, I believe, are going to disappear, and you can define fluff however you want. Okay, things that you don't necessarily need in life. It's amazing what you can do without when times get tough. And a buck becomes hard to come by unless you have a Federal Reserve printing press. It becomes very difficult to justify expenses. And like I say, people can cut out a lot of things with no issues whatsoever. So I'm expecting recovery to be prolonged. I would not be surprised to see an unprecedented, the unemployment rate, especially as we get through June, when money becomes an issue again, and we don't know what shape the United States dollar will be in that time, how much more capacity the world will have to absorb the debt. They'll be doing their own things to stimulate economies around the world, and we could just be drowning in paper. We don't know, paper money. So we just don't know. But there's only one way out that the Federal Reserve and the Treasury see, and that's to create money out of thin air, blow it into the system, put it in people's hands, and let them spend it. Now, of course, if you're on the other end of the spectrum and your purchasing power starts to get dented, or you're somebody that's selling real goods, you may pull back a little bit and think, there's too many of these dollars around. I'm kind of getting not getting good value. That's why we have to keep an eye on the dollar relative to world currencies. It's a very important thing to keep track of, as well as world commodities. Everybody should be checking those commodity prices every day to see when we get that inflection point, when prices really start to have, they'll probably have a day with some huge initial explosion of a climb, and that'll sort of ring the bell that, well, here comes inflation in the face of potentially depression. So we are balanced on the edge. The markets did expect some type of federal response here. Now they're sorting through that, and millions of investors with their collective minds are coming to some conclusion whether it's going to be enough or whether we're going to take that final big plunge down before we get a decent rally, and then just, we can either have a recovery that takes time, or we can just go down into the abyss. It remains to be seen. Meantime, remain hopeful. Help other people if you can. If you have an elderly neighbor or somebody that's a little stressed and things, have them, as one of my subscribers suggested, read about. Get 3 pieces of colored construction paper, red, yellow, and green, and have them put it in their window, so you don't even have to call them or check them. You can call them on the phone if they're elderly. Maybe they have trouble using the phone. If they need something, just put the red or the yellow up in the window, and if it falls good on the day, put a green up so people know. Just, let's be a community. Let's try to be helpful to each other in these times. Very tough days ahead as we move towards the surge. Okay, make sure that you're also subscribed to the Rosie Murphy channel, where we take a lot of historical perspectives about present-day problems. You may find it interesting to see, yes, we have been here before. All right. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Please thumbs up if you got something out of the video, and your comments are always welcome down below. Thanks.